Welcome back to another edition of Under the Review. In these segments, I'll be giving you a quick look at each team going into the 2013 season. I'll be talking about last season, the off-season, my favorite picks from 2013, player positions, and can they make the playoffs. Today, I'll start my coverage with the NFC East teams, and today on the board, we have the Dallas Cowboys. First off, let's quickly look at what happened last year to the Dallas Cowboys. They just went 8-8, just like the year before. They didn't make the playoffs, and they haven't made the playoffs since 2009 when they had Wade Phillips at the helm at head coach. Injuries to Jay Ratliff, DeMarcus Ware, Sean Lee, and Bruce Carter on the defensive side really plagued them a lot. Offensive line was atrocious. I mean, they couldn't even support the running game, and they let Tony Romo get sacked 36 times, the career high for him. So that's unacceptable, and finally showed fans that they can never, ever play up to expectations. The off-season. That isn't enough for the fans, and especially Jerry Jones, who changed a lot of the coaching staff this off-season. A total of seven coaches had to be hired. And most notably, the one that they hired on their list was Monte Kiffin. It's probably their biggest hire, who was coaching at USC for the last 2 years. He's known as the father of the Tampa 2 defensive scheme. This is going to give the Cowboys defense a 4-3 look. So I'm interested to see the influence he can give this defense, because at USC, his tenure didn't last so long and it didn't end so well. On that note, though, head coach Jason Garrett is in the hot seat. He needs to at least get this team to the playoffs, or he's going to get the Dallas boot. I mean, 4 years not going into the playoffs just means your neck. So he won't be calling the plays this year, which were handed over to offensive coordinator and O-line coach Bill Callahan, who wants to focus on the running more. Who's not in the hot seat, in my opinion, that would be, of course, Tony Romo, who is sitting on top of a 6-year, $108 million contract extension. Obviously, the Cowboys are putting all the chips in this guy who's only won one playoff game in his history and has a history of choking in games where it matters most. So the Cowboys want Romo to spend more time this year at the facilities so he can have his input on the personnel and offensive game planning. First of all, there's so many things wrong with that. He should have been doing that the first thing when he's hired. You know, when you're hired as a starting quarterback and drafted and supposed to be the guy that's supposed to lead your team, you gotta be the guy who's gonna be doing all the extra steps to be better. And I don't know, it's kind of backwards, I think. So if they want a Peyton-esque type of quarterback out of Romo, he should have been doing that a long time ago. I find that a little bit ridiculous. Now, my favorite picks from the Cowboys draft. Cowboys first-round pick center Travis Frederick from Wisconsin is going to be the anchor for one of the worst offensive lines last year. He's going to replace center Phil Costa, who missed 2012 with injuries. He's a better run blocker than a pass blocker, but I like this pick because it was a definite need for this offense to be productive and cuts a little slack for Romo. Just a little bit. I also like J.J. Wilcox at safety because the Cowboys are having big issues on safety, with Gerald Sensenbaugh leaving the team and Barry Church, who was lost early in the season with the torn Achilles. Now on to positions. At QB, you have your starter Tony Romo, and backing him up this year will be Kyle Orton. I like Orton because he's capable to play the position and win some games if Romo goes down. Question is, what happens if they both go down? I don't know. Running back. As I've said before, the running game was extinct in this offense, which was pretty sad for the fact that this franchise is home to NFL all-time rushing king Emmitt Smith and Hall of Famer Tony Dorsett. The blame is easy. The offensive line here, that can't cut it, but there's also DeMarco Murray. Injuries caused him to miss 6 games last year, and he only rushed for 663 yards and was the leading rusher for the Cowboys. 663 yards, leading rusher, that's not going to cut it He needs to stay healthy, and I don't know if the Cowboys can count on that happening this year. So Joseph Randle, a fifth-round pick out of the 2013 draft, will be asked to pick up the rushing load if Murray continues his injury-prone ways. Unfortunately, he's slowly drifting into a sinkhole for me, but he can be a game breaker. He just needs to stop getting injured. He caught 66 passes for 943 yards and 6 touchdowns last season. And then finally, there's my favorite, Jason Witten. I love watching Jason Witten play. He's caught more passes last season with 110 than any tight end in NFL history. He just seems to always be at the top of his game. Cowboys also drafted wide receiver Terrence Williams in the 3rd round as insurance for Austin, and Gavin Escobar in the 2nd round to go to a 2 tight end offensive system like the New England Patriots. Offensive line. This offensive line is awful. It only needs one word to describe it. I mean, just awful. I mean, they can get better, but this last year was awful. Their best offensive lineman on that team was left tackle Tyrone Smith, with his supporting cast of tackle Doug Free, guards Nate Livings, Mackenzie Bernadou, and the injured Phil Costa at center. It's the reason why the Cowboys had to rebuild this line with the 1st-round draft pick with Travis Frederick. They could potentially turn it around with everyone healthy, but my hopes on this line are a little slim. Competition should be fierce on the O-line this year, though. So expect a better O-line, or hopefully. Defensive line. Now, I really like the line the Cowboys have on the defensive side. With DeMarcus Ware and Anthony Spencer at the ends in the 4-3 defense, hopefully they can get a healthy Jay Ratliff to impact at tackle, and opposite of him, Jason Hatcher. Spencer, Ware, and Hatcher combined 26.5 sacks last year. I expect that number to hit at least 35 if all these guys can stay healthy with Ratliff. Linebackers. The Cowboys need a healthy Sean Lee and Bruce Carter. They are killer linebackers and top performers on this team, but landed on injured reserve last season. They could have no trouble fitting in the 4-3 defense, however. Big issue is strong side linebacker. Justin Durant, who was signed as a free agent to compete with rookie Devont Halloman and veteran Alex Albright. Still, though, this should be a solid linebacker corps. Secondary. Well, this group will be switching to the Tampa 2 as far as cornerbacks go. Brandon Carr and Morris Claiborne are man-to-man cornerbacks. They will play similar to what Seattle Seahawks kind of do. I expect Kiffin to let them do what they do. And then the free safety position will be up for grabs between Matt Johnson, veteran Will Allen, and rookie J.J. Wilcox. There's not a lot of experience at this position for the Cowboys, so they need to find someone to fit. Otherwise, they're going to get beat up, and they're going to get beat deep, and not making tackles will just look really, really sad. Special teams. Kicker Dan Bailey is a reliable source for some easy points for the Cowboys, making 29 of 31 attempts last year, along with being a perfect 26 of 26 under 50 yards. Chris Jones is coming back from injuries to be the punt and kick returner. Can they make the playoffs? Yes, and here's why. I feel in the football world there is no hype for the Dallas Cowboys this year like there was last year. With a sense of being under the radar, they can potentially make a bid for the playoffs. I think people are tired of this team always expecting them to make the playoffs, let alone try to win a Super Bowl. They haven't made the playoffs since '09, and still the Cowboys have maintained the same talent level to compete. Now, I think the biggest problem the Cowboys have is obviously Tony Romo. And it's not just Tony Romo, it's the fact that Tony Romo cannot win the big games. He keeps choking and choking. He can't do that anymore. He needs to get it done in prime time. He needs to be the crunch time quarterback. So, with that in mind, he needs to stop turning the ball over, and he has to show up. That's all. And he can lead his team to the playoffs, hopefully. Cowboys do have a tough schedule ahead, and with that, I don't think they will win the division. But they do, in some way, somehow, find a seed in the NFC playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs this year, bye-bye Jason Garrett. And who knows, Tony Romo could be potentially in the hot seat next year. And with that, football fans, that is my segment of the Dallas Cowboys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave any comments and subscribe to my channel. The next team I will be taking on is the New York Giants. See you later, folks.